The Big Ten is slated to be a very strong and a very deep conference headed into 2023. Now, a big reason for that is what Big Ten teams did following the 2022 season, attacking the transfer portal to improve their team in that specific transfer portal period. April 15th marks the start date of the spring transfer period. Which Big Ten teams need to attack the transfer portal this spring? Before I answer that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all off season long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten TED to the masses. I'm going to start with teams that need to attack a specific position group in this spring transfer period. I'm going to start with Illinois. Last year, Illinois had that number one running back. They had that Big Ten workhorse. They had that bell cow, and his name was Chase Brown. And I think that's going to be, even though they have some losses in the secondary, that will hurt them. The biggest loss for Illinois is at running back. Chase Brown, the offense really revolved around him and his ability to get tough yards last season. Okay, this is a team that's really good on defense. This is a team that's brought in solid quarterback play. They've got good wide receivers, but this is still a Brett Bielema football team. This is still a team that wants to go out there and be physical and run the football. You look at Josh McCray, you look at Reggie Love. I think they're okay options. I think they're solid options, but if you ride that, I'm not sure if that's going to get you where you want to go. And where Illinois wants to go is Indianapolis, Indiana, on the first Saturday in December. They want to go to the Big Ten championship game. They were so close that they could smell it last season. I think for them to get back to where they want to be, they need a number one running back. I think Josh McCray and Reggie Love could be solid secondary options and provide depth for Illinois at that position. But going into the portal and grabbing a true number one Big Ten running back. You know how much I love Big Ten running backs. You know how much I care and how much I respect the Big Ten as the conference of running backs. Illinois needs to jump in on that, and they need to solidify that running game with a true number one talent, because I'm not sure how much that offensive line has improved from last season. Chase Brown masked a lot of issues for that Illinois offensive line, similar to what Kenneth Walker did in 2021. Let's talk about the Iowa Hawkeyes. They've done a good job in the transfer portal. Big upgrade at quarterback in Cade McNamara. They've gone out and gotten weapons. You know, you look at Eric All. You look at Seth Anderson out of the transfer portal. They've gotten the start going. They need to round all the bases and come all the way home for a home run and grab a number one wide receiver. Cade McNamara needs a target he can throw to. Because you look at all these guys, you look at the receiving group around him. Hey, Seth Anderson's a good addition. He had a really good freshman season at Charleston Southern FCS. This kid's never played FBS. This kid's never played Power 5. This kid's never played Big Ten football before. Can you expect him to come in and be a number one wide receiver? I don't know. I think he provides good depth. I think he's going to be a really solid option for Iowa. I'm just not sure if he can be a number one guy. If Iowa is serious about making it back to Indianapolis, considering what all the other teams in the Big Ten, especially Wisconsin, considering what all the other teams have done on the offensive side of the ball, they need to go out and get a number one wide receiver, a guy that Cade McNamara can depend on, because you know, this offensive line last year was young. They were inexperienced. It's interesting to see how much they can develop in 1 year. I think they will develop. I think this will be a better Iowa offensive line, and it's going to need to be, because Cade McNamara is going to need time. But getting a number one wide receiver in Iowa City is almost a must at this point, because what you have on the field right now, it's just not good enough at wide receiver. Your tight end room is fantastic. I think they're going to be able to run the ball fairly well, but you need a number one guy on the outside. Probably would have been Keegan Johnson if you would have been able to hold on to him, but he's going to Manhattan, Kansas right now. They need that number one target for Cade McNamara to provide some balance to this offense. Let's move on to East Lansing, Michigan. Michigan State. Okay, I look at Michigan State. They were a little bit in the running for my surprise team of the year, even though they're in the East, and I'm not crazy because the East Division is so stacked at the top this season. Michigan State is a very interesting team. I believe this could be one of the better defenses they've had since Mel Tucker's been there, which isn't saying much because they've been bad defenses. but they need help in the secondary. They're losing Xavier Henderson, who is the leader of that defense on the back end of that secondary. This was a secondary that got thrown on a ton the last 2 seasons. They've done a good job in their front seven. Like, they've acquired transfers. Their defensive line is looking good. You still got Jacoby Windman and Cal Halliday in that linebacking core. This is still a good group. I believe the front seven might be even a little bit underrated at Michigan State. But man, did they need secondary help. They needed it last year. They needed it 2 years ago. They definitely need it this year. They need to find a way to get some guys that can cover. Because right now, when you're taking on the Ohio State wide receiver room and Penn State and Maryland and their passing attack and teams like that in the Big Ten East, you need guys that can cover. You need guys that can give your defense a chance. You need guys that can give your pass rush a chance. Michigan State needs to go out, and they need help in the secondary. Let's talk about Ohio State. Ohio State's got all kinds of players across the board. But I think this is a team that needs a little bit more help on their offensive line. They're losing 3 starting offensive linemen. Okay, this was a good offensive line from last year at Ohio State, but they need more beef up front. They need more beef up front because when you got a young quarterback and you want to establish a good running game, okay, and we know the last 2 years against Michigan how important the interior is. Go into the transfer portal, Ohio State. Grab one of the top offensive linemen because you're the Scarlet and Gray. You're Ohio State. You can grab just about anybody. So if you can target some of those top offensive linemen, look what Michigan did in the transfer portal. They went out and they got 3 really good, experienced offensive linemen. Ohio State needs to do the same, bolster the beef inside on that offensive front to make things a little bit better. Northwestern. Dear God, you need a quarterback. They still got Brendan Sullivan on their roster. Believe it or not, they still got Ryan Helinski on their roster. Somehow, some way, he's still playing college football. But dear God, they need a quarterback. Like, you bring back Cam Porter at running back, and maybe things can get better, but it was the quarterback play, I believe, the abysmal quarterback play for Northwestern last year that really hurt them. They need to find a quarterback. And there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are probably better than what they have now. So go find a quarterback that can lead your team, Northwestern. When I look at teams that just need to go into the transfer portal in general, of course, Northwestern is there. I look at Minnesota and I look at Purdue because Minnesota has lost a lot on defense. Now, they've utilized the transfer portal on offense. They've brought in some really good players on offense. I almost think they're an underrated offense. When we talk about some of the better offenses in the Big Ten, I think Matt Simon is going to have a lot to play with this season. But they have lost some stuff on defense. Okay, I know they got Justin Wally, they got Tyler Newman back there in the secondary, but front seven type of work. They've lost some good players that they were expecting to come back this season. And then you look at Purdue. Like, you look at Purdue on defense, and they just need players. They just need bodies. They just need numbers. They got solid players. Cam Allen, Kydron Jenkins are back next year for Purdue, but they need to utilize the transfer portal in terms of just getting a whole bunch of defenders. Rutgers needs a whole bunch of skill players as well, right? I think they've had solid defense. I think they've had solid physical play. Greg Schiano, bring your lunch play type of work kind of play. But they need skill players because Gavin Wimsatt is not going to develop as a quarterback if he doesn't have weapons to throw to. I want to hear what you guys think. Which teams need to attack the transfer portal this spring? Who would you like your team to go out and get in terms of a position group? Let me know in the comments below where your team, where other teams, where the whole Big Ten should go in terms of the spring transfer period. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.